Very, very good afternoon to you. Many thanks for joining us on yet another edition of Worldview here on KTN News on this 25th day of July 2016. Always a pleasure to have you tuned in. My name is Akisa Wandera, taking you through the program where we bring the world to you, tell you what is making headlines beyond your borders. But first, let's take a look at the highlights. 2 people killed and 16 seriously wounded in an attack at a Florida nightclub in the United States.
We can't go on without somebody will say, you go and talk.
The leadership wrangles in SPLM-IO that threatens to slide South Sudan in even more political turmoil. Democratic Party chairperson Debbie Wasserman resigns over leaked emails ahead of the Democratic Convention. Good afternoon. Many thanks for staying with us. We begin with a developing story from the United States, where 2 people have been killed and up to 16 more injured after a shooting at a nightclub in the Florida city of Fort Myers. The attack happened around midnight local time at Club Blue, which was reportedly hosting a party for teenagers. 3 people have been arrested. A police statement said injuries ranged from minor to life-threatening and that a number of people were in hospital. Local broadcaster Wink says that witnesses at the scene described the club as a madhouse. Shots were also fired at a home and a vehicle where one person suffered a minor injury. Officers are trying to determine the motive of the shooting. 6 weeks ago, a gunman attacked a gay nightclub in the Florida city of Orlando, killing 49 people. It was the worst mass shooting in United States history. A developing story there that we continue to keep our eyes on for you. But in Germany, a failed asylum seeker from Syria killed himself and injured 12 other people after setting off a bomb near an open-air music festival in the German city of Ansbach. Bavaria's interior minister said the 27-year-old man detonated a backpack device after being refused entry to the festival in the southern city. It is the 3rd attack in the state of Bavaria in a week. A shooting rampage in Munich on Friday left 9 dead, while an axe-wielding teenager was shot dead after injuring 4 people on a train a week ago in Wolfsburg. Security services have sealed off the city center, and experts are trying to establish the kind of explosive the bomber used. Bavarian Interior Minister Joachim Hamann said the suspected attacker had entered Germany 2 years ago and had his asylum claim rejected a year ago. He had been given leave to stay temporarily given the situation in his home country and provided with an apartment in Ansbach. Meanwhile, mourners laid flowers and lit candles outside the Olympia Mall in the German city of Munich after an 18-year-old gunman shot dead at least 9 people nearby on Friday. German authorities say the teenager began planning his attack a year ago. Officials said the 18-year-old was an avid player of violent video games who purchased his weapon on the so-called dark web. According to police investigations, the 18-year-old German-Iranian, a Munich-born and raised student, opened fire at a McDonald's restaurant and then the Olympia shopping center, killing 9 people and then himself on Friday evening. The attack also left 27 wounded, 10 of them with serious injuries.
For the families. I hear for the families and lighting for the future. No shooting and freedom for all.
And elsewhere in Australia, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull says he will indefinitely detain people convicted of terrorism-related charges if it feels they pose an ongoing danger to society upon their release. Turnbull compared the measures to those employed against some sex child offenders and cited that he called a growing number of attacks, such as the recent Bastille Day attack in Nice, France, that killed dozens of people.
Announcing today are designed to deter terrorism, prevent it, ensure that the nation and our people are kept safe, and to provide reassurance that Australians can and should continue going about their daily lives and enjoying their freedom in the usual way, because they should understand and recognise that the Australian government and its agencies are doing everything possible to keep them safe. The existence of post-sentence preventative detention as a measure will serve as a very real incentive for those imprisoned for terrorist offences to reform. It will provide a very real incentive for people imprisoned for terrorist offences not to engage in continued extremist activity.
All right, and back into the continent to neighboring Uganda, where Dr. Kizza Besigye, Uganda's opposition leader, who is facing treason charges, has once again been towed with his car to a police station in the capital, Kampala, within the last hour after a court dismissed another disobeying lawful orders case against him. The former presidential candidate had his car hooked by the police without confrontation, while his supporters accompanying him from the courthouse were cordoned off, local media reports. The reason for his detention has not yet been disclosed. Dr. Besigye was charged in 2015 together with another member of his party for disobeying lawful orders given by the police after they held a meeting with opposition members ahead of the election. And from this particular situation, let's now bring in our reporter from Uganda, our sister station NBS Uganda. Solomon Serwanja now joins us from Kampala for more updates on the arrest of opposition leader Dr. Kizza Besigye. Many thanks for joining us on Worldview. Solomon, good afternoon. And it seems it's now become a norm for Kizza Besigye to be arrested in Uganda.
Well, it's literally the public here is getting used. It's no longer making so big headlines in Uganda because as we speak right now, Dr. Kizza Besigye has been arrested several times and then later on released. I can tell you the script of the story before it can even get to end. I know that Dr. Kizza Besigye is likely to be returned to his home later on in the evening at about 9 o'clock. And then tomorrow he also has a court session at High Court. Eventually he'll go through a procession. And I'm very, very anticipating that tomorrow he will be rearrested. But let's just also close in on what happened today. After the Makindye Magistrates Court dismissed the case of disobeying lawful orders, Dr. Kizza Besigye is certainly, he went through a procession through the major highway in town, and then he was later on blocked by police and then arrested and taken to the road police station. Akisa, what I can tell you is that Dr. Kizza Besigye has made a statement when at court this morning when he said that he's tired of being taken to court all the time over charges that are later on dismissed. And he's also pondering upon taking government to court on these just charges he calls, useless and illegal. So we will certainly be keeping an eye on that. But as of now, Dr. Kizza remains in the cells of police at the Ginger Road Police Station. Akisa.
Oh, Solomon, you've mentioned that he's given out a statement. Kindly just get more into detail about what he really said as he's arrested for the umpteenth time, so to speak.
Dr. Kizza Besigye seems to be really getting tired of these court cases. Just the other week he was appearing before court again for issues of treason, and then today he had the case of disobeying lawful orders at the Makindye Magistrates Court. Akisa, tomorrow Dr. Kizza Besigye returns to court at High Court to answer another charge. Before you know it, the treason cases will again resume. So literally, I think government wants to keep Dr. Kizza Besigye in court so that he perhaps may not have enough time for him to, go ahead with his political advocacy and all that. And it comes at a time when FDC as a party still has some divisions within there. So politically, it may play out well for the government in power, which is occupying Dr. Kizza Besigye in these court sessions. But does this play out for Dr. Kizza Besigye? Well, you talk to political analysts, and they will tell you that it gives Dr. Besigye political capital because he's selling the Besigye ideology and not Besigye as a person. So even Ugandans who perhaps do not, are not interested in maybe supporting Dr. Kizza Besigye, eventually they begin to have some sort of sympathy towards Dr. Kizza Besigye, and before you know it, that sympathy can turn out into support, and eventually he will be continuing to gain political capital in Uganda, even as Uganda's political terrain continues to take shape, Akisa.
On the last time Dr. Kizza Besigye's supporters came out to openly show their support, they were brutally caned by police officers, of course, indiscriminately. We've just been showing that on our screen. What is the situation today? Is it the same?
Well, Dr. Kizza Besigye, like I said, when he sneezes, Kampala catches a cold. Certainly you have Forum for Democratic Change supporters who are against Dr. Kizza Besigye's arrest, of course, trying to take on the police during the arrest and trying to block the police from arresting Dr. Kizza Besigye. And we will certainly continue to see such scenes of FDC supporters, trying to defend the man they believe is supposed to be the president of its nation. And so it is most likely that we'll see many of those coming, especially in the next days when Dr. Kizza Besigye continues to come in and out of court. But Akisa, maybe let's put this in context. Dr. Kizza Besigye, and I mean, we've moved months after the February 18th elections. Dr. Kizza Besigye still insists that he is the president of the people of Uganda and that he holds the mandate. In fact, he did say last week that he will come out with a list of his cabinet ministers who will be supporting his government. That I know will be challenged by the government in ruling the NRM government. And we're certainly seeing him. It really will be like a Raila Odinga Kenyatta who will be coming back home here, because even months after the elections, even after the Supreme Court, throughout Amama Mbabazi's petition, Besigye still believes that he is the president of the people of Uganda, and he will continue to be defiant on President Museveni's, President Museveni's rule in Uganda, which he says is literally against the democratic principles upon which Uganda stands. So we expect to see more political fights between the government in power and Dr. Kizza Besigye's team.
Thank you very much, Solomon, for that. This is a story we continue to follow up on for you. Solomon Serwanja joining us there from Kampala, Uganda, with that developing story of Dr. Kizza Besigye, Uganda's opposition leader, being rearrested barely a fortnight after being released on bail for treason charges. Now, the world's youngest country is on the brink of more political turmoil, threatening a peace process that took months to come. Over the weekend, a faction of South Sudan armed opposition said it has replaced its leader, the country's vice president, Riek Machar. Mining minister Taban Deng Gai is now the acting vice president. Gai was fired by Machar on Friday, who accused him of defecting to his longtime rival, President Salva Kiir's party, But in a surprise turn of events, Machar's own party members have backed Gai and appointed him as the interim vice president. Riek Machar left the capital last week and his location is still unknown. He insists on returning only if a neutral force backed by the African Union is deployed. Violence between rival factions has killed more than 300 people and displaced thousands others.
All the generals of the SPLM in opposition, all the citizens, the population, they support peace. And they want to continue with the implementation of the peace agreement. They also know me, that I can deliver. And as I'm saying, I'm just only feeling a vacuum. If the man Riek Machar come back tomorrow, I will gladly step aside if that can bring peace to South Sudan.
What do we do? This is what me and them we've been discussing somewhere there. It's what we've been discussing. We can't go on without somebody will say, you go and talk to the president, you go and talk to a defense minister, you go and talk لازم زول بيكون هناك to do the coordination. Somebody who is known to them.
All right, now to the United States, where a dark cloud hangs over the Democratic Convention as a U.S. Democratic Party chair resigned over a row on leaked emails threatening efforts for party unity at the presidential nominating convention. Debbie Wasserman Schultz's move follows a leak of emails appearing to suggest that party insiders tried to thwart the campaign by Hillary Clinton's rival. Bernie Sanders had pressured for Wasserman Schultz to quit on the eve of the convention. In a statement, Schultz said the best way for the party to accomplish its goal of putting Clinton in the White House was for her to step down. Clinton is to be officially nominated at the Philadelphia meeting. Vermont Senator Sanders had said Wasserman Schultz should not be chair of the Democratic National Committee. Debbie Wasserman Schultz had become the face of the obstinate party hierarchy for progressive Bernie Sanders supporters. Now, they have claimed her political head. Hillary Clinton and her campaign are desperate to put a unified face on their party.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Florida Representative and Chairperson of the Democratic National Committee, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Hello, South Florida! How are you? Hello, South Florida. It is so great to be home. So great to have the next President and Vice President of the United States of America here in the beautiful Sunshine State.
Well, speaking for the first time on the leaked emails, U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders said that he was not surprised. Lingering bitterness from the heated primary campaign between Clinton and Sanders erupted after more than 19,000 leaked DNC emails seemed to confirm Sanders' frequent charge that the DNC played favorites in the race. On NBC's Meet the Press, Sanders said this and other incidences with Schultz underscores why she should resign from her position.
Not come as a shock to me or my supporters. There is no question but the DNC was on Secretary Clinton's side from day one. We all know that. And I think, as I have said a long time ago, that the time is now for Debbie Wasserman Schultz to step aside, not only for these issues. We need a Democratic Party that is open, that's going to bring young people and working people into it, that is going to stand up and take on the big money interests and fight for working families. I don't think Debbie has been that type of leader. So I would hope, and I said this many months ago, that she would step aside. We would have new leadership.
Well, and still on the same, protesters took to the streets in Philadelphia amid news of email leaks that shows Democratic Party leaders undermined the Bernie Sanders campaign in order to bolster Hillary Clinton's White House hopes. The furor was a blow to a party keen on projecting stability, in contrast to the volatility of Republican candidate Donald Trump, who was formally nominated at a raucous convention last week and overshadowed preparations in Philadelphia for Clinton's coronation as the nominee to face Trump in November 8th U.S. presidential elections. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of downtown Philadelphia to voice their displeasure over the treatment Bernie Sanders received from the DNC and were happy to hear Wasserman Schultz had resigned from her post.
Excited that Debbie Wasserman Schultz has resigned, and I think there's hope for Bernie. It's not over yet.
I'm protesting because the media has decided the candidate before the election process has completed, and that's not correct. That's not right. The process isn't over until the superdelegates vote at the convention. So until that happens, we do not have a candidate yet. And we are here to show our support for Bernie Sanders for president because he's for us, and he always has been for us.
All right, and our special correspondent Alex Chamada is in Philadelphia to cover the Democratic Convention. Let's now bring him in for an update on some of the things that we should expect in this very big event. Many thanks for joining us on Worldview. Alex, hope you are fine from Philadelphia. A dark cloud hangs over this particular convention just a few days after we saw the Republican one and how it went down. What are some of the things that we expect, Alex?
First of all, the real speeches and the real democratic convention proceedings would be starting every day from 4 p.m. local time here. So during the day, like today, it's already a few minutes past 8 a.m. here. So we expect the demonstrations that you saw there to continue. Then there are side meetings happening, leadership forums and related activities happening on the sidelines. So the speeches and, of course, Sanders will be speaking today would be happening later, much later on from 4 p.m. onwards. And then, of course, the other speakers, high-profile speakers that are lined up, First Lady Michelle Obama, President Barack Obama will be speaking on Wednesday, and Vice President Joe Biden will be speaking on Wednesday as well. And, of course, Hillary will be giving the final speech on Thursday, the last day of the convention.
Well, with all that is happening, the demonstrations, of course, the leaked emails and Davy Wasserman's resignation and the high-profile names that are expected to give their speeches, we expect that the Democrats will try and put a united front. What are the possibilities of it being a smooth ride through the convention, Alex?
Yeah, of course, like what you saw in the Republican convention, there are those dissenting voices who would always come up, and not everyone may say the same thing during the convention. But speaking to Sanders supporters yesterday, they said, of course, he endorsed Hillary, but that did not mean that he considered defeat. There is still the process of nomination where they're expecting what they call the super delegates to give the final vote, and Sanders still is using that occasion to, campaign. It's actually still in campaign mode. But what happens here normally is then it doesn't mean that if, say, the aggrieved voices, then they would be supporting the other side. For example, they would be jumping and saying, we will now support Donald Trump. The supporters of Sanders said they'll be waiting for guidance from Sanders. And of course, if Hillary wins, then if Sanders says we put all our efforts to campaign for Hillary, they would be campaigning for Hillary.
All right, thank you very much for that, Alex. We'll definitely be joining you on a daily basis throughout the convention for updates on how it goes down. Alex Chamada is our special correspondent there, joining us from Philadelphia in the United States. All right, and as this convention continues to be big news internationally and locally both, let's just take a look at some of the names of the candidates who were up for the nomination to carry the Democratic flag into the presidential elections that are expected on the 8th of November. There were 6 as opposed to what we saw in the Republican side. There were 16 people who were interested in this, but from the Democratic side we only have 6. And before we get to the numbers, let's just first take a look at what the names were before we get to the numbers that all the candidates are expected to amass, or the candidates who is expected to emerge the winner or to carry the Democratic flag. We have John Wolf. I'm just okay, all right, we will start with Bernie Sanders, who was one of them, still on the numbers, but we will be getting into the numbers later on. Some of the names of the 6 who were interested in carrying the nomination or the flag ticket for the Democratic Party. We have John Wolf Jr. From Tennessee, who was an attorney and was a previous Democratic Party nominee for the United States House of Representatives.